On behalf of the Department of Cultural Affairs, City of Los Angeles, very good evening to everyone here. Thank you for logging on, taking the time today. My name is Ben Espinosa. I'm joined here by my two fabulous colleagues, Brenda Slaughter-Reynolds and Muna Ben-Buatsa. We are three members of the Grants Division at the LAC Department of Cultural Affairs. We welcome you to tonight's webinar on the Cultural Grant Program. And so, as you know, you are muted right now. Don't worry, we do invite questions throughout the presentation. So please take advantage of the text message box in the bottom right portion of your screen. There should be a little like text box icon. You can use that to type in questions as we present content today. Brenda and Muna will prompt me to pause, and we'll find opportune times to answer questions that are not addressed in our presentation. Feel free to send them as we go. And with that, we'll start off with our presentation. So welcome, this is the Department of Cultural Affairs, a little bit about our organization. This is a city agency for the City of Los Angeles. We have a mission to promote arts and culture as a way to ignite powerful dialogue, engage LA's residents and visitors, and ensure LA's varied cultures are recognized, acknowledged, and experienced. DCA's mission is to strengthen the quality of life in Los Angeles by stimulating and supporting arts and cultural activities and ensuring public access to the arts for all of our residents and visitors. And of course, one of the main tools we have to do just that is the city's cultural grant program. So today's, as a preview of what we can expect in tonight's approximately 90-minute session, I will take approximately 1/3 of that presentation time to give a big overview of the grant program, eligibility details, allowable project types, and funding guidelines, and an overview of the timeline. Once I'm out of breath, I'm going to pass it on to Brenda, who's going to walk us through the application process itself, which is really kind of the gritty details of the components that comprise an application and strategies to present yourselves in the best possible light in this competitive process. So our grant program is subject to what the City Council is able to allocate for grant making. If we look at the last 2 to 3 years, we've averaged around 3.5 million in grants, which has served around 350 organizations across the city. And so we are now, of course, accepting brand new applications with an application deadline on August 29th. We are looking for projects that will take place several months in the future, activities that will begin no sooner than July 1st of 2023, and will conclude no later than June 30th of June 30, 2024. In other words, the city's fiscal year coming up ahead. So with that, let's start off with some basic eligibility requirements for our grant program. Very important that you are representing a 501c3 nonprofit organization, specifically a 501c3 nonprofit with an arts and cultural mission. Arts and culture not as a secondary element, not as a tertiary element. The primary purpose of your organization should be one of the first sentences in your board-approved mission statement. Make sure it's something about producing and presenting arts and cultural services. There is one sole exception to that mission requirement. If it's possible, you are a different kind of a 501 nonprofit organization, perhaps a 501c6 organization, such as a business improvement district, business improvement district, or another nonprofit or another type of organization with a different focus, like social services or healthcare, as long as you are proposing a project in our festivals and parades category, where you would be partnering with an arts organization or arts experts to curate an arts and cultural experience. That's the one exception. So by large, everyone who is applying to our grant program is a 501c3 arts and cultural organization. The second important requirement is that you're based in Los Angeles County. These are locally sourced, locally funded grants. Our grant program is 100% funded through LA City's transient occupancy tax. These are those bed taxes that they charge you when you go visit a hotel, a motel, or Airbnb. All our grants are funded with those revenues. And so with that in mind, it's important for us to make sure we drive those monies back to organizations based here in LA, in the LA area, and specifically organizations who are proposing services to take place in the city of Los Angeles. So of course, LA County is where your organization may be based, but we want you to be providing services and have the experience of providing services in the city of Los Angeles. Third important element when you're thinking about a project to propose to the city of LA is that we are not a seed funder with this grant program. We don't support brand new, novel, new ideas that haven't had a chance to be rolled off the ground just yet. You need to come to us with a project that you have at least 1 year of experience executing, with an idea and pitch for how a city investment can make it bigger, stronger, faster. Okay, and that's important because an important part of your proposal is being able to show the peer panelists, how your project has had a track record of serving Los Angeles workers and residents and visitors, and being able to show prior samples of like photos and videos of your project in the past. Without those, it would be very, very difficult to be competitive in this program. And in fact, it's why it's a requirement. And finally, there are project category specific expectations requirements. So based on the type of project you're proposing to us, there are certain expectations you should keep in mind. And to that end, let's start talking about those types of projects you can propose to us under this grant program. So by and large, most of your projects will fall under this project category called the artistic project. The artistic project is where you tap into your staff of artists, of dancers, of musicians, of actors, other creative workers, technical staff, production staff, and you ask them to do what they do best and to design, conceptualize, produce, and ultimately present an artistic project to the public. So think these are your concerts, your dance performances, performances of a new theatrical play. These are the types of projects that fall under this category. And it's not just necessarily a presentation. Skill building, information exchange workshops can also fall under this category. If you plan to do a community-based workshop where you recruit members of a neighborhood, of a community to learn a craft, to learn a skill, we support projects that consist of multi-week workshops that culminate in a public presentation. It's important to not lose sight as we think about all these categories of the public presentation element. Every project that you're proposing to us should have a component where the general public can enjoy and experience proposed artwork. A second popular category is our festivals and parades. In recent years, this has been strictly limited to outdoor public space festivals and parades. Think about large-scale events that activate a street corridor, intersection, a public park, a publicly accessible parking lot. Those are the types of things that traditionally fall under this category. In these recent years, we've been finding some really innovative, savvy event producers who've presented virtual online type of events. So we've expanded this festivals and parades category to consist of 3 subcategories. Across all these categories, you need to have had produced a festival of some sort where you garnered at least 1,000 project engagers. These are large-scale events in that these are able to command large public attendance. So first category is a small outdoor festival or parade, something that takes place in a park, street, corridor, other public, family-friendly space, where you can tell us and have prior experience of serving 1,000 to 2,000 people. Then these are our very large festivals also, where you've been able to serve more than 2,000 people. So the new category we've been rolling out these last couple of years is this online virtual idea. If you've had experience of rolling out an online or virtual festival where you've garnered more than 4,000 people as project engagers who've logged in, attended and participated, and importantly, where you can tell us that at least half of those folks were based here in the LA area, this opens you up to this type of project category also. Think of our festivals and parades as events where it's really, more so than many of our other project categories, have a very strong community focus, very kind of local focus that is framed around an important annual theme or event where you're not just showcasing your own artists, but you're inviting other partners to showcase their talents. You're inviting other non-arts partners to engage and participate in the activation of public space. So these are our Dia de los Muertos festivals. These are our holiday events. These are our Thai New Year festivals, and a range of other cultural and historic significant events that really have an impressive power to bring people together and experience neighborhood cohesion. Moving along to other types of projects we accept under this grant program leads us to this, what we now refer to as the Sequential Arts School Learning Culminating After-School Public Events category, SailCAPE for short. It's a lengthy project name, but that's intentional. This is what was previously called our arts education category. We wanted to make this distinction because we realized that there is this very specific group of projects that are really revolving around rigorous arts standards aligned multi-week curriculum that's implemented at schools, at elementary schools, middle schools, and high schools that take place during the school day, and that culminate, importantly, in an after-school or evening performance. A note about these types of projects. While public schools are certainly venues where we are happy to sponsor projects, as a city funder, we don't necessarily think of the public school as automatically a publicly accessible space. It's a difficult place for me to drive to and enter with easy access, unless I have a child there, unless it's a specially planned event. That's why it's important for us to, when supporting projects that take place in the school building, it needs to have component where the general public is invited and welcome. So that's why it's important that such projects culminate in an evening concert, an afternoon dance performance, or a weekend celebration culminating and celebrating the skill building and learning that took place over several weeks. It's important to make a distinction here because there are other projects that can possibly take place in the public school. Think about drop-in assemblies, educational concerts that consist of 1 or 2 presentations to school students and their families. Maybe after-school workshops that's open to the general public. Those don't fall under this category. Those types of projects are better suited under the artistic project category, and we welcome them there. What's important about this category is you can expect a panel of education experts, of school leaders, art specialists, and other arts educators who would be reviewing this. It's a very different type of project if your project is based around a rigorous curriculum, standards aligned, to be taught during the school day. This other category we call Field Advocacy and Sector Learning, FASL for short. Unlike the other types of categories, this is more about getting artists, other creatives together for information sharing, for getting arts managers together for conferences and projects that emphasize learning among peers more so than performance for the public. These types of projects are conferences, are networking opportunities, field-specific opportunities. So it's a very specific, it's a different kind of project in that way. I'll pause there to see if there's any questions around project categories and proposal types.
We don't have any questions about categories yet.
Okay, great. All right. So this is a money slide. This is a lot of detail here, and we like to take a lot of time on this one.
Oh, wait, sorry, Ben. We do have a SailCAPE time of day question. Shelley's wondering and wants to make sure she understands if SailCAPE projects always take place during the school day. Would summer arts programming qualify as SailCAPE, or would that be an artistic project?
Oh, that's a great question. If it's during the regular school year, the projects best suited for this category are the ones that take place during the school day. You know, it's a consistent enrollment. It's the students who are enrolled to participate in class. It's happening in their school day. The kids are there. In the summer, when school's not ordinarily in session, a SailCAPE project can be appropriate also. The reason being because in the end, a project that would otherwise take place during a school day is going to be something that I think would be best suited to be evaluated by the school leaders, LA Unified's art specialists, and other arts educator experts. Even though it's going to be happening in after school in the summer. I think a key question to ask when considering, do I do a SailCape proposal or do I do an artistic project proposal? Who should be reading my proposal? Should it be the LA Unified arts educators, arts experts in the arts education space, or am I more interested in the more broadly composed panel of theater experts, dance experts, music experts who may have some education background, who may also have expertise in just general public presentations? If you feel like your project is really aligned to what LA Unified is doing in their rollout of arts education for our youth in the city, SailCape's probably the way to go. Okay, I hope that adds a little bit of clarification. So let's go back to our proposal submission cycles. So we are now in an even numbered calendar year. And so this is going to be the year when DCA is going to be recruiting experts and specialists around the performing arts. We're going to have dance administrators, we're going to have music administrators, we're going to have actors, we're going to have multidisciplinary arts organization specialists, and those folks in this year's panel. And for that reason, we're particularly interested in proposals who have a performing arts emphasis. And the benefit of applying in an even year when you're a performing arts organization is that proposal will qualify for up to 2 years of funding consideration. In other words, you apply on even years only, and you don't have to reapply. You only apply in even numbered calendar years. On the other hand, if you're representing a museum, if you're representing a literary arts organization, a traditional folk arts organization, we're not convening your experts this year. And if you do apply this year, your proposal would instead be reviewed by a mixed panel of arts experts. And any proposal that's evaluated by a mixed panel of experts will get a proposal that will get 1 year of funding consideration. In other words, if you're a visual design organization, media arts organization, applying on an even year, we're going to ask you to reapply again next year to get on this biannual application cycle. So with our convening of performing arts experts this year, this is going to be the year where a lot of our dance organizations are applying for their dance concert series, dance festivals. Our music organizations are going to be applying for their concert series. Our theater organizations are going to apply to produce and present a brand new theatrical production. We have multidisciplinary arts organizations who are going to be applying this year too. We'll also grant festivals, parades, and SailCape projects with a performing arts emphasis a 2-year funding consideration as well, with a proposal submitted this year. Other projects we welcome also, but will be subject to a 1-year only panel evaluation, are our FACIL applicants. These are folks who are convening conferences, networking opportunities among arts practitioners and arts experts. Our museums and other design visual arts organizations, literary arts folks for like literary events, for readings and publications. Our media arts organizations, these are folks who produce film festivals and that showcase a range of films, trad folk, and festivals, parades, SailCape projects with a non-performing arts emphasis would be reviewed by a mixed panel of experts this year. I'll pause here for questions because this slide is not necessarily the easiest to digest. Any questions, folks?
Ben, I would just say that to elaborate more on the SailCape after-school performance requirement and also the public space requirement for any project, free and open to the public. I can walk in, you can walk in, can't really be a private residence. You're going to have the place insured, etc. A few little housekeeping for the actual location of the services.
That's right. Those are great notes, Brenda.
We have another question as well.
Okay.
If our organization falls under design visual arts, can we still apply this year for funding?
Yes, absolutely. Any type of eligible project is welcome. What the purpose of this slide is just to inform you about who's going to be reviewing your proposal. So because we are in an even year application cycle, if you are submitting a visual design type project, your proposal will be welcome, but reviewed by a mixed panel of experts. This panel will consist of literary arts folks, maybe 1 or 2 museum people. There might be a film festival producer on that one. In other words, it's not a complete panel of museum experts or visual design experts. And for that reason, the application you're submitting to us this year will be evaluated and be good for 1 year of funding consideration. And if approved for funding, we would ask you to reapply again next year.
Great. And we have somebody who also wants a clarification about after-school event. Is it that the event is free, or does the after-school program itself has to be free to students?
That's a great question. All projects that are supported by DCA grants must be offered to the public for free or low cost. And that takes me to this next slide, which is important. We define low cost as something that you would pay for what a movie ticket costs nowadays. So in the ideal situation, you're able to offer your program for free for the general public. That's participants in the after-school workshop, and for that culminating show that showcases the wonderful learning that took place over a number of weeks. But you're certainly welcome to plan a project budget that factors in low-cost earned revenue. If you're charging folks tickets in the $10, $20 range, that's eligible for us. And beyond free or low-cost arts activities that are open to the public, we are interested as well in activities and events taking place in arts underserved areas in the city of Los Angeles. I'll jump ahead to a slide here that shows a map of LA. Every little colored patch there represents a council district in the city of Los Angeles. If you can isolate like the upper left portion and then the portion below the 10 freeway, that brainy looking portion in the upper left there, that's the Northwest San Fernando Valley and the Northeast San Fernando Valley. Areas where we have relatively fewer arts and cultural opportunities for the public. Similarly, below the 10, Council District 8 and 9 in South Los Angeles, not as many arts opportunities as you can find in, say, downtown LA, right there in the middle of the city where all our museums are, or even further down there towards San Pedro. So geography matters a lot with DCA grants. So as you're thinking about defining a project for us, to the extent that you can frame a project that exclusively takes place in arts underserved parts of the map, it helps boost your geography points for us. We're also very interested in projects with capacity enrollment and attendance. We like to see projects that you have a history of, wow, it was sold out. We had a run of shows last year. It was sold out. We wish we could have done more shows, if not for more money. That presents a great case for a strong grant proposal with us. We like programs and projects where you're demonstrating strong community relevance and interest by showing us that your offerings are demanded by your audience.
A few questions, Ben.
Sure.
Go ahead, Muna.
Yes, we have a few raised hands.
Okay.
Would you like to answer now, or should we leave the questions for later?
Sure. Let's invite folks to unmute themselves and ask a question, and we can respond that way. Would you mind inviting specific people, Muna, to pose their question?
Yes, 1 second. Cordelia? Sorry, Brenda, would you mind inviting people?
Sure. Cornelia Emerson, you had a raised hand?
Yes. I represent an organization that is more or less in the visual arts design field, but does do various kinds of other programming, including things that would fall into performance.
Okay.
If we applied this year for a multidisciplinary field, and then next year for visual arts, would that be confusing, or is it taking this year by year?
Thank you for the question. That's a good one. Understood that a type of organization who may be design or visual focus may be proposing some sort of multidisciplinary or performing arts types of project. In that case, when checking off the box in your application, we do invite you to check the box that most closely aligns to the specific project you're proposing. Here's the thing, though. In the interest of reducing the administrative burden for you, as well as for the DCA grant staff, we want you to stay on the cycle where you're only reapplying to us every other year. So if you do go that route of proposing a multidisciplinary project, we invite you to do so, but propose a project that you can roll out in one fiscal year and at the same time be positioned to replicate in concept for a possible second year of funding. We would prefer that if you apply in under multidisciplinary this year, that you will choose, if approved for funding, to renew it for a second year of funding consideration.
Otherwise, would it be better to wait a year and apply in the visual arts category?
The choice is yours. You are certainly welcome to apply multidisciplinary this year and then reapply the following year with a visual arts project. But if you're planning to reapply 2 years in a row anyway, we suggest you pitched a project that you're most committed to, that you feel like is the best fit for DCA funding priority. And if that's a visual design project, propose that, and then we invite you to reapply the following year to get on that every other year reapplication cycle.
But I guess I don't understand that. If it's basically a visual arts organization, we would apply for that this year, visual arts, and because then we could do it a second year.
Even though you would be able to do it a second year, we're going to ask you to reapply, because we ultimately want your visual arts project to be peer reviewed by fellow design visual experts.
It doesn't quite answer my question, though. If we chose a multidisciplinary project this year, which we are planning to do, could we then apply next year for visual arts and get on that cycle then?
You can choose to do that, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, we also had a raised hand from Jennifer. Jennifer, are you still there? All right, we also next then have Fernando and then Sheila.
Great. We'll do Fernando and Sheila. Fernando?
Okay.
Fernando.
Yeah, the idea is to be able to do radio drama in Spanish with the partnership with KPFK Spanish programming, and so do workshops in Spanish, and also do live rehearsals over in a particular theater in the community, and then to basically do a podcast and then broadcast it over the radio station. What is it that? How would you make a case for that type of programming? Is that too weird to have that type of project?
It sounds like a fine idea, Fernando. It sounds like a theater-focused project that involves community involvement and participation, and multiple ways to showcase the results of those workshops.
Yes.
If you're asking for confirmation, does this sound like a theater project? My answer is yes.
Okay, that's the question.
Yes, and Fernando, you should just also keep in mind how you're going to reach your audience online. You're going to have to report back to us how you did that and who the audience was.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you, Brenda.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we'll take that one last question from
Sheila.
From Sheila. Hi.
Hi, Ben. I have a question for you now. We're an artist in resident program. We provide arts education, long-term arts education to underserved areas throughout Los Angeles. Now, when you mention underserved areas, of course, you know, we're working with very underserved population. When you're asking for a public performance piece, are you including, how do you see that? Because the schools close at a certain time. You have to pay for artists, teachers, to hold the school open for any public performance. Within the areas, most of the time, you don't have locations that you can do a public performance piece. And if it's directly after school or later, you know, you have to, the parents, you know, are dealing with transportation, public transportation, everything. We're looking at underserved populations. So how do you see this public performance piece with what we do? And if so, do you include the teachers or the principals or whoever's going to stay after to keep the school open to do something like this? Is that a part of the budget?
Yeah, the answer is yes, absolutely. It is important that when designing and conceptualizing projects that primarily take place during the school day, there is this element where certainly parents, family members, and the general community can be invited to experience what kind of learning took place in the weeks preceding. I invite you to think about opportunities to perhaps piggyback. If it's taking place in a public school setting, are there opportunities? Is there like a parent-teacher night that's open, where the school is already open anyway? Can there be an opportunity to interweave some sort of public and artistic presentation, community presentation? Are there other school events that are already calendared that take place on the weekend or after school, where your arts organization can be a participating member and invite the youth that you've been working with to showcase what they've learned over several preceding weeks? We understand there's a cost. That's why, as part of your proposal to us, you're gonna sketch out a project budget and include all of those anticipated expenses that are necessary to ensure your project is successful.
Okay, just one more question. You're asking for support letters. You know, the schools are closed right now. We have support letters from support letters that we can use, but they might not be directly to the DCA. Can we give you those? Since
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
We don't necessarily require letters of support to be addressed to us. We hope that they are recent and that, you know, they've been, and you have them. That's totally fine.
So that's okay. All right. Well, those are my two questions. I'll probably have more later.
No worries.
Okay.
So let me recap again our grant program priorities as you're designing your project. Remember that we are not a program or operating funder. We don't support a 12 months worth of activities happening at your organization and your communities. Our grant sizes are too small for that. Instead, think of us as very specifically a project funder. And for us, a project is something that doesn't typically last more than three to 6 months at a time. So for example, if you're a theater company and you have a whole season of performances planned, try to carve out what component of that season you think could be the best fit for DCA funding. Perhaps there's some performances, community performances planned, you know, in arts underserved parts of the city. Perhaps you plan to roll out your new performances of a play, you know, at a more expensive, you know, $40,000, $35, $40, $50 range a ticket? Is there an opportunity to carve out a Sunday matinee, weekend matinee program or project that you can really target DCA funding to make happen? So those are the things you should think about as you're conceptualizing how to package your project for us. So think about free or low-cost activities, the geography of your activities, events that will garner maximum capacity, and importantly, a project where your budget shows that you're paying artists, you're paying musicians, you're paying dancers, you're paying actors, and production, technical staff, and other creative workers. We at DCA think of our grant program as a job creator, a job sustainer, and that's an important part of the logic of our evaluation. And we hope that you think about that as you put together a project for us. So back to the geography, I think we marked the Valley and South LA. If you'd like an interactive version of this map, I encourage you to go to these links where you can see, you can zoom in, zoom out, you can type in an address, type in a business name. You can also use the neighborhood info tool at lacity.org to type in a specific address where you'll be presented with a lot of information about your proposed project location and venue. All right, before we talk dollars, I know we're more than a half hour into this grant program. We haven't spoken about dollars yet, but we'll get there. And an important step to being able to calculate that is your data arts report, is your cultural data survey. So all arts organizations are required, and so that means most of our applicants are required to prepare and submit an updated cultural data arts profile as part of your proposal. Many of our returning grantees know this can be a beast and a time-consuming task, but it's super important. This is really the only reliable way our peer panelists are able to see each of our applicants, despite a variety of arts focus, of programming type, and budget size, and to see very consistent information about each of and every one of our applicants. So if you haven't already, please do go to culturaldata.org, log into your SMU Data Arts account, and complete the latest survey so you can run a DCA specific funder report and upload it as part of your application. Very important that if you're applying to us, that your cultural data report has at least 2 years of information there. It helps our peer panelists see a trend and the trend across the last couple of years and how your organization has been performing, financially and programmatically. And if you're the exception to the rule, that if you're not an arts organization because you're a social service agency, you're a housing nonprofit, or another type of a business improvement district proposing an outdoor festival or parade, you don't have to do a data arts report because you're not an arts organization. And instead, you get to submit to us a 990 or a signed series of financial statements kind of outlining your organization's financial position and health. The other exception to that is if you're a brand new organization, if you've been operating for about a year or so, you're also exempt from a data arts requirement. You would be applying to us as an emerging arts organization because you have less than 2 years of data arts to report as an arts organization, and that will allow you to participate in the grant program and be eligible for a smaller grant amount, which we'll talk about in a second. So why is this so important? In addition to being able to offer our peer panelists a nice bird's eye view consistently of all our applicants, is there's this figure that's very important in calculating your maximum allowable grant request, and that's the total revenue less in kind from your organization's most recently completed fiscal year. And that's a key bit of data that we will use to determine how much of a grant you can ask of DCA when submitting a grant proposal. So let's talk about that now. Be ready for a lot of text. We are intentionally keeping this very text heavy because there's a lot of detail to be absorbed here. First, before even talking about those dollar figures, do know all of our DCA grants are matching grants. These are one-to-one matching grants. So if you're requesting $20,000 in funding, we expect your project to be at least $40,000 in expenses, because you would be expected to match $20,000 in DCA funding with at least $20,000 in non-City of LA sources. So matching requirements can be met in myriad ways. You can meet your match with other earned income, private donations, board contributions, state monies, federal monies, county of LA monies even, or even a mix of donated in-kind services and materials. So you have flexibility in how to meet your minimum one-to-one match. But do know, because of that one-to-one match requirement, whatever you're requesting of DCA can never be more than 50% of your planned project expenses. Okay, so with that in mind, let's talk about how much you can ask. And it's based primarily on the size of your organization. You'll see there's some overlap here between our small, mid, and large. We defer to you to think about how you want to be viewed by the peer panelists. Peer panelists keep in mind what size organization is submitting an application, and that impacts their evaluation. So if you're one of the super big folks, large, extra large budget organizations, these are folks with budgets of 800K to 10 million or greater, far more than what DCA's budget has. You can request up to 4% of your most recently completed fiscal year, total revenue less in kind, up to 80K, understanding this cannot count for more than half of your total project budget. Mid-size organizations, these are our organizations who have operating budgets of greater than 75K in their most recently completed fiscal year. Mid-size organizations can request up to 10% of your most recently completed fiscal year's operating budget, up to $40,000. Small organizations are those with operating budgets between $10,000 and $100,000. 20% of that operating budget is what you can ask, up to $10,000. And our tiny new folks, emerging arts organizations, these are very small nonprofits, typically with operating budgets of less than 20K in their most recently completed fiscal year, or organizations with less than 2 years of data arts reporting. You can request very small grants of between $1,500 up to $3,000. There's a special...
Sorry, Ben, could you just let people know about the overlap in these budget categories?
That's right. As I mentioned earlier, we defer to you if say you are an organization right at kind of like the $80,000, $90,000 range. You're falling between the small and mid-size. So you have to take a look at your financials, take a look at your project budget, and think about how that impacts your possible grant request, and think about how you wish to be perceived by the peer panelists as you're evaluated against your fellow small or mid-sized organizations. Would you rather be a small organization competing with fellow small organizations, or do you want to be the mid-sized organizations competing with other mid-sized organizations? We defer to you. That was an intentional overlap. We want you to tell us at what level you view your organization today as you're submitting your proposal.
One more clarification, Ben, on the amount requested. People are wondering if it carries over for 2 years or if it's per year.
That's a great question. Thank you, Brenda. I'll emphasize that the proposal you're submitting to us is for a 1-year project. So your narrative, your project scope should take place within a single year. Your project budget should be associated with that 1 year of activities. So it's a 1-year project budget. If you're on cycle, if you're a performing arts organization applying this year and you're approved for funding, we will have an opportunity to invite you to renew your peer evaluation for a 2nd year of funding. We would then ask you to, if you're able to replicate your project in concept. In other words, is your budget going to be kind of similar to what you had pitched 2 years ago? Project structure similar. We understand thematic focus and subject matter can change, but if your project was about producing and presenting performances of a new theatrical play, can you do that over again for a 2nd year? So your project budget should be a single year, but a budget that you can realistically replicate if approved for 2nd year of funding. Festivals and parades. So when you're proposing a festival or parade, the maximum allowed is dependent on the type of festival or parade you're producing. If it's an outdoor small festival, again, these are festivals that or parades where you have between 1,000 to 2,000 people in your most recent iteration, you can request up to 30% of your organization's most completed fiscal year operating budget, up to $20,000. Correction, up to $15,000. Pardon me, $15,000 for a small festival. If you're proposing a large outdoor public space festival or parade, you can request up to 30% of your operating budget, up to $30,000. And if you're submitting an online festival or parade project proposal, you can request up to 30% of your project budget, up to $20,000. And of course, no request can be more than 50% of your total budget. And for festivals and parades, your organization needs to have an operating budget of at least $20,000. So this is a lot of detail. The good news is that we do have a tool online that helps you answer a couple of quick questions and helps you identify what's the maximum you can ask of DCA. So I'll point you to that now, and it's at dcaredesign.org grants. This is the homepage of our grant guidelines. You've probably already seen that because that's how you were able to register for today's webinar. So let me point you to where you can find our maximum grant request calculator tool. If you're on this page, if you go to our preparation, matching requirement, calculating a maximum request, a lot of this will look very familiar, but here you'll find a link to our grant request calculator. Before being able to use this, you need to do a little bit of homework first. You need to have done your cultural data arts report so you have an understanding of what your organization's cash operating budget was for the most recently completed fiscal year. Or if you don't have a data arts, if you're a business improvement district or another type of arts organization, another type of nonprofit proposing a festival project, you look at your most recent 990 or your most recently set of tax of audited financial statements. If you zero in on your organization's cash operating budget, you're ready to go. And the second important thing is you need to have at least a sketch of what your total project will cost. So once you have those two bits of information, you can proceed with this. So let's pretend we are a mid-sized organization. I know my cash operating budget from my most recently completed fiscal year was around, let's say, $185,000. That was my total revenue less in kind in my data arts report. Punch that in. I'm proposing an artistic project consisting of a series of dance concerts. And I know it's going to cost, the project budget's going to be around, let's say, $63,000. Click on the calculate max allowable. It tells you I'm allowed to request up to $18,500. And then it gives you an explanation of how that was calculated. So fear not, this was a very scary slide, but we do have a tool. This was a scary slide, but we have a tool to help you kind of like process all that information. All right, so at this point, you're probably ready to apply and submit a proposal. So go back to this website. Under the instructions tab, you'll see all the instructions for accessing SurveyMonkey Apply, which is the online platform where applications are submitted. Brenda's about to walk us through what that looks like. But before we do that, let's take an overview of the timeline for this coming year. Right now, you are registering and creating a SurveyMonkey Apply account. You're going to fill out this proposal, and you're going to make sure to submit this proposal by August 29th. That's a typo, pardon. By August 29th, which is Monday, at the end of the month. And as part of completing your online submission by August 29th, you're going to get an automatically generated email that asks you to print out a hard copy of your proposal and to snail mail it to DCA Grants, ensuring that it's postmarked by September 3rd. Essentially, make sure that it's mailed to us by the following week. And then you're not going to hear from us for a little while, because between September and May and June, Brenda, Muna, and I are recruiting, convening, and facilitating a range of peer panels to evaluate the many, many proposals that we're going to get. And it won't be until May and June where the city has finalized fiscal budget for us for the year that begins July 1st, 23rd. And that's the time you're going to hear from us whether or not your project was approved for funding. Hopefully, everyone here today will get the great news that you're recommended for funding, and then July in 2023 is when your projects will be taking place. All right, I'll pause here for questions before we jump into applications.
No question in the chat.
Okay.
I think Fernando had a hand raised.
Go ahead, Fernando.
Yeah, the funding that you request, is it for one single year, or is that like LA County where it's divided by 2 years?
So we'll see an example budget. Brenda will walk us through a budget. But as I mentioned earlier, Fernando, that everything that you're submitting as part of this proposal is focused on a 1-year time frame. So your narrative is going to focus on services that will be completed within the single year. Your project budget is going to reflect the costs and revenues to execute a project that takes place within a single year.
Okay.
All right. Well, Brenda, I'm going to pass the baton to you and walk us through what the application looks like.
Great. So I'm going to share my screen here. And we're going to start off right where Ben showed you to the place where you're going to apply. Can everyone see my screen?
Looks good, Brenda.
Okay, so you're here under our Cultural Grants Program Applying tab. We're going to prepare to submit. So we want to register for our SurveyMonkey Apply. I have an account already. I'm going to show you how you can set that up. But my account is under Susan Ross. But you can see I have no applications. I'm going to see what Susan Ross can apply for. Cultural Grant Program. That's the program I want. Let's see. I can't apply because I'm Susan Ross. So I have to apply as my organization. My Festivus organization is going to be the applicant. And so I have an application I've already submitted to show you here, but I'm also going to walk you through the brand new application here. My project is Festivus the Musical. So this is the performing arts year. I'm going to have all my artistic samples ready. I have my budget ready. I have my narratives thought out. And now I'm going to approach the application. You can stop and start and save your work. Don't feel you have to do it all in one seating. But right now we're going to go over the first 3 pages of the application. It's going to be your cover page with all your basic information, the narrative answers, and key artists and staffs, and your project budget. So let's begin. Page 1 here, we're going to go over our basic summary, our information. We're going to put in all our organizational information. A key thing to note here is that the email you enter here is the email that DCA Grants will use to notify you of your application status. So please be sure it's an email that is shared or used by multiple people that have access to it. Very often, people miss their award announcement because the email is no longer valid. I'm going to choose my budget category. I think most of us here on this call are either emerging, small, or mid-sized. I am a mid-sized organization. I have over $75,000 of annual revenue. If I am an emerging organization, I'm less than $20,000. That is the lowest, smallest organization that we are able to fund. And now I go to my discipline. So this year I am applying in theater, and I see an asterisk. I'm applying on cycle. That means I'm eligible for a 2nd year of funding if my application is approved. Now I go to my budget, and Ben just showed us his amazing allowable grant calculator. I have done my work. I have my data arts report. I have my grant amount request figured out. I'm asking for $8,000. Ergo, my project has to be over $16,000. I cannot ask for more than half my project budget. I have completed my data art report, and this $100,000 cash revenue number here is actually taken from my data arts report. On page 7, you're going to see total revenue less in kind right here. That's the number you're going to use to put into the application right here, total cash revenue less in kind. Now, I'm going to go to my primary purpose. I'm asking for funding for an artistic project. I'm doing a series of Festivus the Musical. It's been a large hit year after year, and this DCA money is going to help it go bigger, better, faster, stronger. I'm adding additional student matinees. I'm adding additional cultural programming around the production. I can pick two impact of my project here. Please don't pick more than 2. You can decide which of the 4 are most relevant to your project. Then I'm going to tell DCA where I am headquartered. If you don't know, use the handy dandy neighborhood info app here. Muna also put this into the chat. We need you to be accurate when you're choosing your neighborhood of headquarter. And if you are located in Santa Monica, Pasadena, Culver City, that's elsewhere in LA County, you're still eligible. Please just let us know where you are outside of these council districts. Then I'm going to let you know where my project is going to take place. Now, I'm going to let you know the project locations of where I want DCA funding. If I'm doing more than 5, I need to indicate to DCA which ones I want to be funded. The others I can use as my match. Remember, these are basically reimbursable matching grants. So if I'm hitting 10 council districts, I'm going to ask DCA funding for 5. And the 5 should be council districts that need art services. So I am going to say that I am using my own theater in Council District 2. I am in 2, I'm headquartered in 2, my audience is in 2. I have a strong presence there, and that's where I'm going to stay. I am not going to be doing this project online. I'm not going to be recording the performances to stream out to the citizens of Los Angeles, unless public health order dictates, in which case DCA will work with me. The start and end dates of my project should be no more than 6 months. We want your program to be no longer than 6 months of program activity. Because of our invoicing and reporting process, we do not really have the ability to monitor year-long projects. And more often than not, year-long projects are more program, seasonal, etc. And we are really a project funder. So I want them to fund my extra productions of this Festivus the Musical. So I have my start and end dates. I have 35 actors, performers, technicians, arts-related project participants. I've calculated how many people are going to see my shows by the number of seats in my theater and the number of shows I'm offering. Please remember to circle back and make sure that these numbers are accurate. I'm going to choose my special constituencies. Now, please select up to 5, but no more than 5, and pick the most relevant. Because my program is very popular for seniors, I have selected seniors, artists, and adults. I'm going to save and continue. And then I'm going to go to the next page. And so here start the narrative questions. This is part 2. You'll see 7 narrative questions that the local municipal funders have agreed upon. So if you have applied to the county or another local municipal funder, you'll see that these questions are all the same. Now, we want to hear your mission. This is your board approved mission, not something made up on the spot for the purpose of the application. We want to know your history and programming. We really want to know your accomplishments, any struggles you've had, talk about COVID, how you made it through, how the past 2 years have been for your organization. Talk about your planning and leadership, administratively, financially. Do you have short-term goals, long-term goals? Are you working on a strategic plan? Have you recently expanded your board? Have you recently taken on new programming? Just let us know what's happening.
Yeah. Brenda, let me chime in with a question that we got via text.
Okay.
Relates to social change intentions. Can you share what we mean by social change intentions?
Social change intentions in terms of a question here?
I think it refers to one of the checkboxes from the prior page. What does a program, what do you intend your program participants, attendants, attendees to experience as a result of engaging in your work?
So what do we mean by that? We mean how deep and transformative is your project going to be? How are you going to evaluate that? How are you going to go from the beginning, middle, and after of your project in terms of audience experience or social dynamics that has caused change in the audience for the better, for activism, for better quality of life, for engagement? So it really is an ad hoc question specific to your organization and the project that you're doing.
Yeah. It highlights that we get projects that have a range of depth and focus. We have,
Yes.
We have a 2-hour festival project, that really seeks to entertain the family and their kids for an hour, with musical acts and food vendors. In contrast, we have multi-week, in-depth resident poetry workshops in middle schools in South LA that are really trying to improve literacy and engagement and experience of the arts for kids who would otherwise not have them. So it's a question that just asks, what kind of aims does your project have?
Yes, and that will tie into another element of the application, which is the cost per head. So deep engagement, we can understand a higher cost per head because our mandate is free and low cost, but we do understand deep engagement can come at a higher cost. Right, so another narrative question here, your community and your core audience, who are they? Who comes to your show? How do you know who they are? Do you do surveys? Do you do talkbacks? Do you have any volunteer cohorts in your group of audience? Your artistic policy. We need to know how decisions are made at your organization. How is the artistic practice held up? And now we get to your project narrative. You can go back to the guidelines here and find the project narrative here, fully detailed out. But this is really going to be the nuts and bolts of what you're asking support for. And we're specifically leading you with this beginning sentence that says what exactly you're asking for. We're seeking DCA support to produce and present X. So this is going to be your project, your mission, your activities. You're going to describe to us from there how this funding would allow that to happen. Okay, we also are not a seed funder, so we want to know how this was done before. We want to know how you measured it. We want to know the impacts. So circling back again, we really need to know, how do you know who saw it? Did it help? Is it part of your mission? Did it help your mission? We really want to know the values, the engagers, paid workers, etc.
Yeah. Brenda, if I may, I'd like to take a step back to the project narrative. One of the reasons we've created that leading on sentence is we want all applicants to think about proposing a project that is very scalable in nature. It's very unlikely that you're going to get 100% of your grant request. So we want you thinking about components of your project that you can quantify in numbers. If you're producing a new play, think about them in number of presentations. How many, is it going to be a series of 6 shows, 10? And how many complementary community outreach workshops do you envision? If you're requesting 40K and you plan to do 10 concerts, what if you only get 20? We want to be able to scale your project down by 5 if you get only 50% of your grant request. those are elements of a project narrative that really lends itself to compatible government funding.
Yeah, thanks, Ben. No, that really does set up great expectations of funding, which ties back to the maximum grant ask calculator. Please know every year DCA is asked for more than $12 million of funding, and very often we're given 3.4 to 3.8 in grant funding. Yeah. So understand necessarily that these projects are sometimes scaled back, and we need to know specifically your description of the exact amount of productions, performances, online viewings, etc. that you will be doing. Okay, as I said, we are not a seed funder. DCA funds programs to make them bigger, better, faster, stronger. This item G here is going to let DCA know, and it gives you very detailed 4 items to talk about. How it was done before, how this project was done before, why you want to grow it, how you're going to grow it, what are your target groups, how are you going to justify your cost per head. And justification of the cost per head is really just letting us know how it was conceived, executed, and reconciled. We really need to know if your program was a 12-week program in a high school and it cost $100 per head, we'd really like to see how you spent the $100. If your program was viral and 100 million people saw it, we'd like to know the impact that was given there through that funding. All right, very important, part 4, staff and artists. These are the professionals executing the work. These are bios not to be skipped on. They are short bios, but we really want to see the caliber of the artists that are doing the work, the association with your organization, the role that they are going to play in the project, the importance of your organization's relationship with them. You can add as many as 10 people. I've added more people here. More the better. If you don't have 10, no need.
Hola, Fernando.
Dime.
¿Ya comió?
No, no he comido.
No, porque en media hora va a estar el caldo de...
Yeah, Fernando, you can eat later.
Yeah.
All right, let's go on to the next page here. This is going to be our page 3. All right, here's where we get to the money. We have an income and then we have an expense. There are...
we have a question regarding cost per head.
Yes.
It's a clarification question. Is cost per head the cost to viewers, like a ticket, or is it how much you spent related to how many people saw it?
The cost per head is going to be the difference in your budget and your audience attendance. So that for Department of Cultural Affairs should be free or low cost. And I'll just skip ahead. I'll get to show you the calculation of the cost per head in just a second when I finish this budget here, if that's okay. Because once you take your income and your expenses, you can see the total cost per head that gets calculated automatically. For us, free and low cost is about the price of a movie ticket. So give or take, higher, lower. So here, you're going to start with your earned income, ticket sales, tuitions, parking, everything. For every single item you enter, great. Panelists really appreciate the breakdown of how you arrived at that cost. Please put in those notes. And then you're going to have a second section here for contributed income. Again, please put in notes. The panelists really appreciate this clarity on the expenses and the income. So now I have proposal expenses. This is a proposed budget, and so it's going to match. Please make your income and your expenses match. This is not a literal budget. This is a projected budget. So the two must match, and I'm telling you, it really makes a difference for the panelists to see these notes. Your budget notes really make a difference. I can't say that enough. So here I have my grand total expenses, matches my grand total income, it gets to calculate my cost per head at $17.35. So the cost per head is a grand total of expenses divided by the total number of participants and audience members. So remember I said I had 35 project engagers, and then I had 2,250 audience members. It divides that by my budget and tells me what it costs per person. That's very important to DCA. Okay, so now we've come to the end of these 3 pages, and I'm going to mark that as complete, but I'm not done yet. I have to upload all my artistic documentation and my supplementary materials. So from here, I'm going to upload my artistic documentation, and for performing arts, video, 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 please. Panelists would really like to see your video work. Okay. I'm going to go show you where this is in the application here. I'm going to upload my artistic work samples. Now, you have a choice of doing links or, I'm sorry, Mona, yes?
Yes, that was a question actually. Can we send YouTube links?
Yes, absolutely. And one note for applicants is to please time frame the link. If you want the panelists to watch minute 6 to minute 9, please indicate that in your description. If you are uploading a 30-minute video, the panelist is not going to watch all 30 minutes. Remember, they have many applications to go through, and they want to see the most relevant piece of your artistic sample. So here we have, you can have up to 3 links to online video, audio, web pages, or other resources online, or B, up to 10 images. And now you can skirt around the image issue a little bit by attaching a link into a document. That way you'll get another video if you choose to do images as your as the majority of your documentation. So I have chosen links here, and I've attached them all, and I have inserted a description here of the URL. And I have all of my links there. And then I'm going to go now to my supplementary materials. There are many attachments to upload. These are all just going to be self-generated Word documents. Attachment A is going to be your project location. For returning applicants, you may remember this as the host venue form. You're going to put the name of the venue, the address, the council district, and the name of your contact, the number of years you've worked there, and you're going to upload this as a PDF document. And if you are doing an online project, you must also indicate and verify how you are going to track online viewership to the residents of the city of Los Angeles. Attachment B is going to be your prior year paid artist. That's the immediate prior year. That would be the same project that was done in the previous iteration. And if you are using more or less artists, that's fine, but we do still want the bios. We do still want to know who has done this project before with you. Teachers, artists, musicians, etc. Then attachment C is recent press material. Many of us understand that performing arts reviews have declined over the years. If you do not have recent press, also there was COVID. So if you don't have recent press, please get a testimonial, get documentation from past participants. Please have an outside voice tell us about your program. All right, so it even says here, if you don't have any reviews, you can have an unsolicited letters from someone who attended or participated in your proposed project. So this is very specific to SailCape. Attachment D, that's your curriculum and lesson plan. So this will definitely be required and reviewed by arts education experts. So please be sure to include at least 2 sample lesson plans. And then we have an attachment for non-arts partners. It's optional but strongly encouraged. So if we have a non-arts partner, perhaps another local business that is joining us in this endeavor, please include that attachment. And lastly, a letter of recommendation, always appreciated, always encouraged. This can be from an individual or a family served by your past project. It really needs to be someone who is deeply engaged in your organization and understands the work that you do. So here you'll see in the application my supplementary materials. I just upload them. And they show up like that. Prior year paid artists, recent press materials, curriculum and lesson plans, non-art partners, letter of recommendation. I'd like to review one more time very quickly the upload where you're going to have your Data Arts Funder report. So your Data Arts Funder report is going to be, oh dear, I can't be all cool and savvy here. Your Data Arts Funder report is going to be from when you log into your Data Arts account. I'm sorry, this isn't showing up right. All right, I know we're running out of time here, so I'm just going to present like this. I apologize. So you're going to log in to your Data Arts Funder report. You're going to see your login. You're going to go to Funder Reports and Grants. You're then going to find the City of Los Angeles, and you're going to make that a funder report that you're going to run. Okay, so you're going to review and you're going to run your funder report, and your Data Arts report is going to come out looking like this. You're going to see SMU Data Arts on the left, and you're going to see Department of Cultural Affairs on the right. That's how you know you've run the correct report. And then you're going to attach that report to your application right here. Okay, though it shows up right here in your application. And this is what the panelists will see.
Brenda, we have a couple of raised hands.
Okay.
I'd like to invite Dorothy to unmute and pose your question.
Hi, Dorothy.
Okay. We'll come back to you, Dorothy, in a second. Paula,
okay.
You're up next to please unmute yourself and ask your question.
I figured it out. Sorry. Oh, sorry.
Dorothy,
okay.
Are you ready to ask your question?
Yes. Okay. Just a couple of quick questions. For our chorale samples videos that we're going to be submitting, if we do 2, do they want them each less than 5 minutes? Does it matter as long as we put where specifically we want them to check? Or is there a time limit total for the videos?
I would recommend no more than 5 minutes. And if you do have, say, like a 12-minute video, indicate in the description, please watch from, 6.08 to 10.08.
Right, but we can do up to 3 links, I think. And so what I was wondering was, can we do up to 5 minutes per link?
Yes.
Okay, great. And then the other quick question was, prior year paid artists, we're applying for 20 FY23-24, do you want our prior year paid artists to be from this coming up year, 21-22, or from 2021? Does that make sense?
Either or both.
Okay, okay. Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Sure. Let me just quickly finish. I have more uploads for you to do. I went over the artistic documentation and all the other attachments, but I'd like to point out you're going to upload your data art funder report. You're going to include a financial snapshot and any variances over 10-20%. Really helps the panel understand your financial picture right now. Everyone has been through COVID. I imagine everyone has variances to explain. We really need to hear from you. Then we need a copy of your IRS letter. This is how we verify that you are a nonprofit. And then we have our own handy dandy list we need you to upload of your board of directors. There's a template in the application that looks just like this, and you will type in your board of directors list and upload that to your application. Okay, just a few other things here. Board of directors we just went over. We did go over artistic samples. We went over supplementary materials. And then at the end, you're going to complete some service metrics. What would it be without metrics for government funding? And then you're going to do a process evaluation form. Each year, we do take these into consideration. We're trying to make this process as streamlined and easy as possible for you. So that's a big overview of the application itself. Please note this is run by SurveyMonkey Apply. We can assist you to a certain degree with this program. Otherwise, the platform is not located in our offices. And if you are having login issues or password issues, DCA will not be able to help you, but we will be able to help you in many other ways. So please feel free to reach out, but just know that SurveyMonkey is your go-to. Same goes with SMU Data Arts. That is not housed in our office, and we can help you as much as possible. But if you're having trouble running the funder report, SMU Data Arts is your go-to. Okay.
Brenda, we have raised hands. I'd like to invite Paula to unmute and pose your question.
Yes, I have a question about the project location. I was wondering, so in addition to our student matinees in our theaters, we also host in-classroom workshops. However, we have not decided on which schools we will be working with, but we do have many schools who we've already created relationships with and tend to work with us every year. So I was wondering, even if we have not solidified that list of schools, would you like us to list some of the potential schools that we would be working with under that project location?
Great question, Paula. And yes, we do understand the nature of forecasting ahead for projects. So if you wanted to use your previous schools as placeholders and examples of previous work, we would certainly be open to that. We do like you to know in advance as much as possible what you're going to be doing in the future. So if you could, we have one school committed, we usually have these schools, we're working on them, let us know the progress of that. And I would also just like to reiterate, we do not fund open calls. So there should be some previous record of artistic biographies that you can put in there. If you know you're casting a play over again, you can still put in your previous year's performers and let us know that this is the quality and the caliber of what you will be casting again for the same project. Sandy, yes, there's a PDF of the application in our guidelines. You can print that out.
Great. More raised hands, Brenda. Fernando, I'd like to invite you to unmute yourself and pose your question.
Okay, just to confirm that I made sure that I did hear right. There are like about 5 projects that we did last year. Is that a maximum? And I know somebody else asked the question, but I'm always like in doubt. Does it mean that you can only submit 5 minutes of each, or 5 minutes altogether?
5 each.
5 minutes of each.
Yes.
Okay.
And folks, don't forget when submitting links that there's limited passwords required. It's a pitfall to avoid. I mean, make sure the links are super accessible. It's possible a panelist will not click on the link as late as maybe in December or January. So when including a link in your proposal, make sure it's accessible all the way through up until May and June of next year.
No password protected links. Great point, Ben.
We have more raised hands. Paul, I'd like to invite you to unmute yourself and pose your question.
Hi, how are you guys? We are looking to fund a project of veterans stories, which is also going to be, it'll be a theatrical performance. We're going to record it, put it up on our website, and veterans from all over the country are going to be submitting stories, and then of course we'll be viewing it afterwards. Can we use, say, veterans who are not local city of LA and our per head count?
Well, Paul, it sounds like maybe you're projecting what would be the online audience.
Right. Our audience our online audience, both in the United States and maybe internationally, can that be used as our per person outreach number?
And is this something you've done before?
Yeah, we're doing it right now.
Okay, so I would use the numbers now then that you have to project your audience. Yes.
Okay, so veterans who would be, like, say, in South Carolina or Montana, who we would say who we think are going to be viewing the video, we can include those as audience members.
Right. I mean, remember, this is City of Los Angeles funding. Right. For the residents of the City of Los Angeles. There is also, a tourism element to what you're talking about, but we do invite people to come into Los Angeles to perform. It seems like a very mixed project, though, if you're doing some production here, but then streaming. So I would work on your project narrative maybe to clarify the portion of funding you want from DCA. Is it to record the stories? Is it to stream them on a big platform?
Or is it for actor salaries for the theatrical production here in Los Angeles?
So you're going to have actors read the stories. You won't have the veterans telling them?
The veterans it'll be their stories, which we'll be adapting for the stage. Actors will be performing them in a 1 hour or so piece.
So I would target your grant request on paying the actors here in Los Angeles.
Okay, thanks very much.
Yep.
Sure.
We have one question from Kelly. If you're partnering with a higher education institute, you don't apply under the SailCape, or is that more specific for elementary and high school?
Yeah. I'll take that one. Thank you, Kelly, for the question. That's correct. SailCape is specifically for elementary, middle, and high school arts standard, California arts standard aligned curriculum. Anything taking place in a higher ed will not be in the SailCape category. You have your hand raised as well, Kelly. If you'd like to add additional context, you're welcome to unmute and say hello. Nope. All right. No more hands.
And no more questions.
Oh, Kelly raised her hand after all.
No, I didn't. I'm sorry. Thank you for answering my question. I raised my hand originally because of the typo, but you understood. So thank you for that.
Good to see you, Kelly.
All right. Please email us if you have any further questions. I know we're at time. Ben, can you show our contact info?
Sure. So feel free to reach out to us anytime before the grant deadline. We are far less grumpy the day or the Friday before the deadline. So if you have questions, feel free to reach out to us now and in the coming weeks. So we're always happy to help.
Yes. Thank you all for spending your time with us. It really means a lot to us that you're taking the time to invest in this application.